Well, the Big Apple is tightening security ahead of tomorrow's Thanksgiving Day parade. Police are adding sand trucks and blocker cars along the parade route. This coming after ISIS expressed support for a terrorist plot in Times Square in a propaganda publication. It mentioned an attack similar to the one in Nice earlier this year in France when a terrorist drove a truck through a crowd. Joining us right now is the professor of irregular warfare and author of Defeating Jihad. He is Dr. Sebastian Gorka. And we love having you on, Dr. Gorka. Good to see you.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be back.
What's your take on what's happening ahead of Thanksgiving with all of this new worry?
Well, the NYPD is doing what it does best. It has created a world-class intelligence organization focused on counterterrorism, and they're taking these threats very seriously. So the ISIS publication, Rumiyah, had this article on how to do a Nice-type attack, and ISIS has demonstrated already that low-investment plots like this one can bring very high-yield returns in terms of people killed and the fear that is spread. So it's classic insurgency, and the powers that be are taking this threat very seriously, Maria.
Has Donald Trump mentioned to you soft targets? What would he do in the face of these soft target upsets and worries?
Well, you know, this is a very tactical issue. So ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the global jihadi movement, that's a strategic issue. These kinds of things are at the tactical level. It's not what a POTUS-elect would be dealing with from a day-to-day. He's made it very clear to me when we met that this is a burning threat to the United States. He takes it very seriously, and he wishes to destroy groups like ISIS. On the other hand, we leave this work here in the United States to the professionals who are embedded in those communities and who get the intelligence and act on it as soon as possible.
Sebastian, it's Dagen, McDowell. In terms of a more aggressive policing in this country, in terms of identifying the enemy, radical Islamic terrorism, and going after that in the way that when here in New York City, where the current mayor has backed away from what was happening in mosque, will we see more of that potentially, particularly with Sessions as the Attorney General?
If you listen to the key speech by President-elect Trump from Philadelphia and also his Gettysburg speech, the message is very clear. The age of political correctness is dead. There's going to be no more censorship of the threat. When the enemy says we're a jihadi, we get to call them jihadis as of January 20th. So the really effective human intelligence programs that the NYPD developed and which Mayor de Blasio is trying to shut down, those are exactly the kinds of programs we have to have effectively expand on the federal level as well.
It's a good point, Dr. Gorka. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So, Dr. Gorka, how exactly is the Trump administration going to compel, goad, override folks like Mayor de Blasio who are taking this softer approach? What does that involve? Is it extra governmental? What needs to happen here?
Well, look, I'm not going to talk for President Trump or the transition team, or President-elect Trump or the transition team, but there's lots of potential tools that can be done. Number one, there's the rhetorical one. He is the commander-in-chief as of January 20th. That is the person who is mandated to protect American citizens, whether they live in Manhattan or whether they live in Alaska. So that's number one. It's the power of the presidential pulpit. Secondly, there's all kinds of issues to do with federal funding. Most of these cities that want to maintain sanctuary status, don't want to toe the line on immigration or illegal immigration or other national security concerns, they get a lot of money from Washington. Well, they should think twice before they say we're going to ignore what the president or the White House wants, because there could be fiscal ramifications to that.
There's also so much of this is also just psychological. They don't even have to do anything. If they just say, oh, watch out, parade, they do something like this, a lot of people are really afraid about something like that.
Well, look, that's the nature of terrorism. Terrorism uses fear to exert pressure and to coerce a population or the representatives of their population. But remember, there will be a new sheriff in town January 20th, and the message will be clear. We're going to be friends to our friends, and our enemies are put on notice that there is a new boss in the White House.
Yeah, but I think you're hitting on something really interesting. I mean, when you look at what Mayor de Blasio has said and Rahm Emanuel has said, they're just ignoring the, what Donald Trump is saying with these sanctuary cities. So do you think that that's going to continue, Dr. Gorka? I mean, what happens now that Donald Trump is being, harder on immigration laws? These laws have not been acknowledged in years.
Not only that, this administration at the federal level has stymied ICE, Border Patrol, have stopped them from doing their work effectively. So there will be consequences after the inauguration, very clearly. Look, I think Donald Trump was elected mostly on a message of national security. People are afraid. There are issues like Obamacare and everything else, but this was a national security election. And if you have mayors who say, well, we don't care and we're going to keep doing business as usual, they will pay politically for that with their own constituencies as well. So, this is a new dawn in America, and those mayors, those chiefs of police need to wake up to the reality.
Just really quickly, there is a way to withhold federal funding from these cities. Now, some of the federal funding is mandatory, but you can withhold. And Jeff Sessions has talked about this very thing, about prosecutions and withholding funding for these cities. So a city that is broke like Chicago, what are you going to do? There is a way for this administration to put pressure on these sanctuary cities to basically follow and enforce the national law in terms of immigrants.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, let me say one thing. Just look at the cabinet picks, okay? There's not one milquetoast individual amongst them, and that's the new political reality. If you want to play fast and loose with the security of America and with the safety of American citizens, there will be political prices to pay for that as of January 20th.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Dr. Gorka, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Sebastian Gorka there. Coming up next, do not mix family and politics. Stuart Varney will tell us why he's not dishing out a piece of his mind at the Thanksgiving Day table this year.